talked about the different groups. Okay, we talked about the different groups that came to East Africa, and some of these groups included the Church Missionary Society. We talked about the Mill Hill Brothers. We also talked about the Moravian Church of Scotland. We had groups like the Paris Evangelical Missionary Society. We had groups like, of course, so many of them. But we also had individuals that came as missionaries in East Africa. If we are to look at the leading missionaries that came to East Africa, we had H.M. Stanley, we had Bishop Hannington, we had Father Lodell, we had many of them, of course, so many of them came to East Africa, and they preached the word of God. So briefly reviewing what we looked at last week, okay, before we look at the new information. All of this information, we looked at it last time. We may not actually repeat this because we don't have that time. The reasons for their coming to East Africa, we looked at them. We may not go back to each and every reason. So all these ones you see here, we looked at. And yes, all of this information is there. Now, that was the end of our lesson 1. And now we are going for lesson 2. And under lesson 2, we are now going to look at the problems faced by Christian missionaries in East Africa in the 19th century. So, of course, these missionaries faced so many problems. Some of them were political, social, and economic. And we are all going to look at these problems. Now, there is something I've just remembered. When introducing, we normally tell our learners that we no longer want introductions like the problems they faced were political, social, and economic, however much I've used it, but we are discouraging you from introducing like that. When we are introducing, we give a historical background. If the question is talking about missionaries, give us some brief information about the missionaries in your introduction. Something like 2 points, 3 points around there, maximum 3 points introduction. But you can give 2 points introduction, giving or talking about the background of the missionaries. Now, the other statement I used is that the problems were political, social, and economic. Now, that one can be brought in our conclusion, most especially when we are concluding part B. We do not introduce part A. We do not introduce part B, but we conclude part B. We introduce part A. In most cases, we don't have to conclude part A. So I think you've got my point. Introduction, part A. Because we know the format of the questions. There is always part A and then part B. So introduction, part A. Conclusion, part B. Have you got that?
Teacher.
You've not got that? Okay, I've been saying that when we are introducing, we give a historical background of the stem they have brought. Now here we are talking about Christians. So when you are introducing, for example, problems faced by the Christian missionaries, do not introduce by saying that the missionaries faced political, social, and economic problems. No. You give a historical background, talk about the missionaries, talk about the different groups that came to East Africa. Maybe you can even talk about the names of the individuals that came to East Africa, individual missionaries. That is when you are introducing. 2 points introduction, maximum 3. You understand? Maximum 3 points in introduction. Now, the other statement I used, the problems were political, social, and economic. Now that one is preferably given in our conclusion. So you may state it in your introduction, but you will not be given it. So we are moving over to something else. We've wasted a lot of time there. Now, here we are with the problems that the missionaries faced in East Africa, and problem number 1 goes. They faced a problem of rivalry among different Christian groups. For example, the Waingereza against Wafransa, or in brackets we've got Protestants against the Catholics. Waingereza, that is Protestants. Wafransa, that is in Catholics. But again, before I explain this, I started with they. Are you seeing they first? Now, they is a pronoun, and we are ever telling our learners, you shouldn't use the pronouns. Instead of using they, put their missionaries first. Are we together? Have you got that? Yes. Are you hearing me? Have you got that? Hey, are we still there, or you are muted? Okay. So we are saying
Got it. Teacher, we got it.
So I was actually telling you that we do not use pronouns. You are not supposed to use they. Are we together? Instead of using they, put their missionaries. Are we together? Okay. Yes, can you hear me? I think you can. Because I can see it here. All right. So we are saying that they faced a problem of rivalry among different Christian groups. For example, there were Waingereza against the Wafransa, or Protestants against the Catholics. Now they were rivaling for converts. They were rivaling for Africans. They were looking at Africans, and each group wanted to convert as many as possible to their side. So here we are saying that yes, there was that competition, and they were rivaling against each other, which was not so good and which was such a big problem to the missionaries. Yes, this is now, or we are moving over to point number 2, and there it is. They also faced a problem of tropical diseases, such as malaria, sleeping sickness, smallpox, and all that. Okay. A moment, please. A moment. Oh, someone was complaining, teacher, I can't hear you, but I believe people can hear me very well. Okay. So we are saying they faced a problem of tropical diseases, such as malaria, sleeping sickness, smallpox. You understand? All these diseases at the time didn't have cure. And so many of them died of these diseases. It is even believed that Dr. David Livingstone died of malaria. Therefore, it was such a big problem to the missionaries. Yes, we are moving over to this other point. There it is. Christian missionaries faced a challenge of inadequate funds like food, water, medicine. Yes. Now, at the initial, when they had just arrived in East Africa, they didn't have food. They didn't carry enough food. The food they found in East Africa was not, of course, they were not used to such foods they found in East Africa. Water, of course, some of the water in the places they lived was contaminated. Then medicine, yes, they didn't have medicine for the tropical diseases. And yes, indeed, it was such a big problem to the missionaries. So we are moving over to this other point here. There it is. The poor means of transport was another problem faced by the Christian missionaries, since they lacked vehicles. Surely these people didn't have vehicles. And on top of that, the roads were also not so good. Some of the routes were impassable. And even if they were to have vehicles, it would have been hard for them to move from one place to the other, simply because the routes were impassable. You understand? The roads were not so good. So there was that problem of transporting that so much affected these Christian missionaries. I believe the points are clear. Let me see in the chat here whether anyone is asking. So I believe everything is clear. You can go to the chat and then tell us whether things are okay. Okay, so I've gone back to the points. This is another point which is coming here. Yes. You can see this other point here. Let me see in the chat. Okay. Okay. Now the point goes, Christian missionaries faced a problem of language barrier since they did not know the local languages. Yet the local people never knew the foreign languages. I think you can see the missionaries. Okay, Lois, you can unmute and ask your question. Lois had a question. I mean, I've seen the hand up for Lois. Okay. So we are saying Christian missionaries faced a problem of language barrier since they didn't know the local languages, and then the local people didn't also know the foreign languages. You can see. Yes, I thought someone wants to ask. All right. Yes, Lois.
Teacher, how did those people communicate with the people around?
Now this is the very point we are looking at. We are saying that these people could not actually communicate very well. It was such a big problem. And we are saying the foreigners didn't know. A moment. Okay, we are saying that the foreigners didn't know the local languages. And again, the local people didn't know the foreign languages. So it was a bit hard for them to actually communicate. Though somehow, somewhere, they were learning slowly by slowly. And as the time went on, they perfected the languages. Anne, you've raised your hand. Anne?
Teacher, you said that they were communicating a little. That a little, how are they able to communicate that a little bit they are communicating?
Okay, now there were some explorers that had come to East Africa earlier. These explorers had tried to learn the local languages. Some of these explorers could interpret to the missionaries, and where things became so hard, they were using also signs. So I think I've answered that. Okay. Mary is also raising up her hand. Mary. Mary?
Teacher.
Yes.
Are there some examples of the local languages they learned?
Of course, the local languages we are using here in East Africa, Luganda, Kiswahili, and so many other languages, you understand? And that is why they even interpreted the Bible. I mean, they translated the Bible into Luganda, into Kiswahili, and some other local languages, okay? Now I'm going to minimize the hands because we have to, proceed. Okay, Goretti, you are the last to ask. Goretti.
Teacher, I was asking that problem of language barrier.
Yes.
Did those missionaries learn some of our local languages or they used signs?
No, they learned. Actually, I've explained it. I've told someone, there was someone who posed that question, that we had explorers, and these explorers had come to East Africa earlier than the missionaries. These explorers learned some local languages, so they were interpreting to the missionaries. But as time went on, even the missionaries learned the local languages. But at the beginning, it was indeed a very big problem. Communication became so hard between the two groups of people, the whites and the Africans. So I believe that point is now clear, and it has been about language barrier. So we are moving over to another problem here, and there it is. So it goes, missionaries faced a problem of dangerous wild animals, such as lions, leopards, and so many others. You understand? Dangerous animals. For your information, they were passing through thick forests to their destinations. And of course, in the forests, they could find there these dangerous animals. The leopards, the lions, even the snakes could bite them, and many of them died. Many of them were eaten by these dangerous animals. So I think that point is very, very clear to you. Harriet has again raised her hand. Yes, Harriet. Yes, Harriet, just unmute and ask your question. Okay. Okay. So we have gone to another point here. That was dangerous wild animals, and these animals, of course, claimed or killed many of these missionaries. Okay, so we have moved over to this other point here, which is just coming. There it is. So we are saying, okay, some people have raised their hands. Okay, we are saying Christian missionaries faced a challenge of attacks from hostile tribes such as the Nandi and the Maasai. The Christian missionaries, of course, did not actually find a soft landing. These people were attacked by the different tribes that never wanted to see them. The Nandi did not want to look at these people. And in fact, they thought that some of them were even ghosts. The way they looked, their color, skin color, of course, the way they put on, their hairstyle. So some of them could be seen as ghosts. So the Nandi, the Maasai, the different African groups decided to fight them. So it was so hard for them to convince these Africans that they should change from their traditional religion to Christianity. Some people have raised their hands here. Okay, what are you saying? You can unmute and ask. Okay, so that point I think is clear. Then I'm bringing another point here. That is hostility of the Muslims at the coast who were converting people to Islam was another challenge that was faced by the Christian missionaries while in East Africa. For your information, the Muslims had already arrived at the coast of East Africa. They were already there doing business, trading, and some of them were even converting the coastal people to Islam. So when the missionaries arrived in East Africa, it became a bit hard for them to compete with the Muslims that had started in converting the people of East Africa to Islam. So it was such a big challenge to the missionaries, and of course it took them time to solve that problem. We are moving over to this other point here. I believe that one is also clear and the people have got it very well. So yes, this is another point here. Those who have put their hands up. Unfortunately, I cannot see your names here. Okay, there is Sharon. Unmute and then unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Sure, I go back to this point of they face the problem of hostile tribes. They didn't have like weapons like guns.
Oh, okay. Yes, okay. Let me now answer. These people, yes, had guns, but surely the guns were not enough to kill all the animals. Okay, so you can put your hand down, Sharon. You've already posed your question. So the thing is, they had guns, but they were not enough to kill all the animals. Okay. Irene. Yes, Irene.
Teacher, I was saying that who were the Nandi?
Oh, the Nandi. The Nandi, this is an African tribe in Kenya. Okay, it's a tribe found in Kenya. Okay. I think I've answered you. Then Higenyi. Higenyi.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Okay. We have gone back. We may not have. Okay.
Teacher,
yes.
About the point of Muslims at the coast.
Yes.
So how was the converting of people into Muslims a challenge to the Christian missionaries? And also, what did they need the manpower for?
Oh, now we have not yet gone to the point of manpower. But of course, I will explain that when we go to that point of manpower. But again, how was it a challenge? How was it a problem to the Christians at the coast? Now, remember, they were competing for these Africans. Each side wanted to convert these Africans to their belief. So the Muslims were converting Africans to Islam, and then the Christians, the Christian missionaries, were also converting Africans to Christianity. So that is the competition we are talking about. It became such a big challenge. Okay, so we have gone back to the explanation here, and this point here I've not yet explained. We are saying that they faced a problem of inadequate skilled manpower or inadequate personnel, i.e. there were few in number. One is asking that why did they, or what was the need for the skilled manpower? Skilled manpower, we are talking about people who could convert, okay, the word of God to African languages, who could convert the Bible, okay, to African languages, translate, okay. We are looking at people who could teach Africans, because these Africans were illiterate. So there was a need of some technical people to teach these Africans the different languages and the skills in doing some other things. So they didn't have these people, okay? The experts in carpentry, the teachers, you understand, because these people needed to be taught all of this. So that is what we are looking at: inadequate personnel, inadequate manpower. You understand? So of course they did a lot in East Africa. They constructed churches, they built schools, they needed the engineers, the architects, you understand? But we are saying they were not enough, okay? So I think that point is also clear. We are moving over to this other point here, which is missionaries also faced a problem of great opposition from slave traders. Great opposition from slave traders, you understand? Who were not willing to stop because the trade was profitable. Yes, remember, missionaries looked at slave trade as something that was inhuman. So they needed to stop slave trade, and then replace it with the legitimate trade, the right trade, the trade that was acceptable. But slave trade was not acceptable. Okay, slave trade was not acceptable. So now they were fighting slave traders, and again the slave traders would not just let these people fight them like that. So they were they staged some stiff resistance. Okay. We have gone to another. We are going to look at another point here, and here it is. Missionaries faced a problem of thick, impenetrable forests that posed a very big challenge. Thick, impenetrable forests. Okay. Okay. Sharon again. Okay. Sharon, let me first. Sharon has got a question. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a problem. Like another word to mean inadequate.
Oh, maybe not enough. Okay. Not enough.
Okay.
That is it. Okay. Then Buire. Buire, what's your question?
Sure, what do you mean by
impenetrable forests, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The forests were too thick. Okay, it was hard for them to pass through the thick forests, right? Then George William. George William, yes. Oh, sorry. Sorry, George William. Okay, you can now ask.
I want to just ask you here. What was the other problem? Didn't they face a problem of man-eaters like the Zimba tribe? Because they used to eat people.
Yeah, man-eaters, that problem is also there. There was that problem of man-eaters, you are very right. And it was such a challenge to them. You are very right. Yes, Harriet.
Teacher, I was asking about the previous explanation. How did the slave traders be profitable?
Oh, sorry, your network. I've not heard the question very well.
Teacher, how did the slave traders benefit from that slave trade?
Oh, you want to know how did the slave, you want to know the benefits of slave trade by the traders. Of course, they were getting riches. They were getting riches, they were getting money. But of course, we may say riches because the monetary economy was not so much, they were not in the monetary economy. So most of them were getting riches. That's how they benefited. So if you've asked, you can lower down your hand. Jovia. Okay. Please, if your question has been answered, you lower down your hand, okay? Irene?
Teacher, the meaning of rivalry.
Irene?
The meaning of rivalry, teacher.
Oh, the meaning of rivalry.
Yes.
Or rivalry. Rivalry is similar to competition, like they were fighting for. Each side wanted to win. These Africans on their side. So like fighting for, that is rivalry, fighting for. You understand? Okay, so I think let us go back to, I can see, okay, Andrew.
Teacher, the last point,
Uh-huh.
you wrote missionaries face the problem of thick, impenetrable fog that posed a big challenge.
So you want to know how it was a big challenge?
No, teacher, you wrote posed. Don't you mean caused?
Causing? I'm not actually getting your point very well. The question is not clear.
You wrote posed.
I wrote caused, eh?
No, posed.
Okay, let me see. Paused, eh?
Yes.
Okay, eh? Oh, okay. Thank you for that observation. Thank you for that observation. I'm going to edit this, okay? Before we send you this information. Thank you for that observation. Okay. Yes, I will edit this. Okay. Okay, we are moving over to another point here. There it is. And it is in Christian preaching often conflicted with African traditional practices, okay? Such as polygamy, superstition, circumcision of girls, etc. Yeah, remember these Christian missionaries were against some African traditional practices. But again, Africans cherished their practices, cherished these practices. They so much loved the polygamy, you understand? So they, you know, like superstition, someone could scare off others, like someone could be, how the word is even evaporating, a scarecrow in a certain village that, hey, that one can even predict, can tell you when you are going to die. You understand? Superstition. So circumcision of girls was not all right. So missionaries preached against this. But then Africans were like, no, this is our culture. So it was such a big problem to the missionaries. Okay. We are looking at another point here. And there it is. Another problem is a moment. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so we are saying missionaries faced a challenge of poor means of communication with their home countries since they had no telephones. You understand? So we are saying there was that problem of communicating. It was so hard for them to communicate to their home countries, to communicate to their people they left home. They needed some, you know, like drugs. They couldn't communicate easily. They could send someone there, but it took a lot of time for this person sent to reach the country and then come back. So the problem of communication was indeed a very, very big problem to the missionaries. Okay. So we have gone to this other point here. Yes, there it is. That there was total lack of law and order in East Africa. Total lack of law and order in East Africa, meaning that the king's word was final. The chief's word in the different societies was final. You understand? There was no laws, there was no constitution governing these African societies, these East African societies. At the end of the day, it became so hard for the missionaries to get the justice they desired. So there was no law and order in East Africa. So I believe that point is also clear. Then we are switching over to another point here. And there it is, that Christian missionaries also lacked written literature for the new converts. Yes, written literature for the new converts. Yes, these people, of course, the moment you talk to someone about how good something is, then this someone has got to have again some written information to keep on reminding himself about what you told him. So we are now saying that they didn't have the written literature. The Bible was there, yes, but it was not translated into African languages. And at the end of the day, it became so hard for these Africans to it became so hard for these Africans to learn what they were being taught by the missionaries. Okay, but in the interest of time, okay. Motebi? Yes, Motebi, you can ask. Motebi, you've raised your hand, and Motebi? Okay, Motebi, I think. Then Annie and Tyra.
Teacher, I'm sorry to be a little bit off topic, but there is this phrase I came across in some history notes. It's the flag followed the cross. What does it mean?
Oh, the flag followed the cross. Now we will look at that under a subtopic known as the role of missionaries in the colonization of East Africa. They wanted to mean actually that they came with the cross, but behind the cross there was a flag, meaning that they had to spread Christianity in East Africa, soften the minds of these Africans, and then prepare the ground and then prepare them for colonialism. You understand? So
Yes.
the flag, they came with a cross, and behind the cross there was a flag or flags. Okay.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
That is, you are welcome. You're welcome. So there is Evariste, you can ask. Evariste, you can ask.
Why is it that the missionaries used to pass through thick forest?
Oh, the answer is very simple. They didn't have good roads. You understand? Transportation, the roads were not good at the time. They only had routes. You understand? Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Then there is Georgia William again. Georgia William.
Yes, teacher. I want to, teacher.
Yes.
I just want to request you, yeah, that after this lesson that you send us this work, yeah, on our WhatsApp groups, because some of us, we are not with our books writing, yeah, but we shall receive it in WPS office.
It is okay. It is okay. And we are not, of course, meant to give you notes here. Like when we are explaining, you are not supposed to be copying. So we will send you the notes. Don't worry. Okay. Yes. We are now going to. So let us try to finish up with because our admin needs some minutes here to take us through the Google Classroom. Okay, so that was written literature. Then this is another point here. Some missionaries got lost in the interior due to lack of geographical knowledge. Yes, they got lost in the interior. So they could, of course, they didn't know the geography very well. They are trying to go to a certain place. They don't know how they can even reach there. Now they are like, we can go back. They cannot again go back. Like the geography became too hard for the missionaries to do their work very well. So there is this other point here, which is the missionaries faced a problem of hostility from African traditional leaders. E.g., Washington was killed on orders. Yes, hostility from African traditional leaders. Indeed, this is very true. Some missionaries were killed by some African leaders. So they actually thought that these missionaries had come to preach against their kingdoms. You understand? Remember, they were preaching, they were talking about the King of Kings, that is Jesus Christ. And then these African kings were like, these people, against me, like I'm the king of this region here, and they are talking about the King of Kings. You understand? So they faced this hostility from these African leaders. There is this other point here, that Christian missionaries also faced a challenge of lack of decent accommodation. Indeed, this is very true. Lack of decent accommodation. At the time, they didn't have these good houses. At the time, they had wooden houses. You understand? And of course, wooden houses could even be taken by floods. So decent accommodation was such a big problem to the missionaries in East Africa. Now, there is general illiteracy of the converts as a major challenge of the Christian missionaries. General illiteracy. These people could not read, they could not write. The missionaries were using different languages. Those who came from Britain were using English. Those who came from Scotland, they were using the Dutch language. English also. Those who came from Holland, they were using the Dutch language. You understand? Those who came from, these different France, they were using French. So these Africans could not actually understand the language. Again, if it was to be written down, they could not read it. You understand? So it became a very big problem to the missionaries in doing their work. I can see some hands very briefly. I want to hand over to our admin. Mutebi, yes, you can ask. Mutebi. Okay. All right. Now, with that information, we've come to the end of this lesson here. We've looked at the different problems faced by the missionaries, and we'll be picking up from here next week, same day, same time. And don't go off. I'm turning over. I'm giving back the mic, Charles. Mr. Charles, are you there? Mr. Charles, can you hear me? Please, our learners, don't get off. Mr. Charles has got something important for us. He's actually taking us through Google Classroom, and we need it so much. So, Mr. Charles, can you hear me? Well, I think he is coming anytime to be taking us through Google Classroom, okay? Let me see. Okay, in the chat here, people are saying, thank you, teacher. Yes, you are welcome. You are welcome. Yes, whoever is thanking me, you are most welcome. Yes. I don't know that Mr. Charles. Okay, someone has actually raised the point here that we didn't talk about poor cooperation. Poor cooperation between the Christian missionaries and the chiefs. That is right. Very true. They did not cooperate very well. WhatsApp link. Mr. Charles, please, if you are hearing this, I would like to get the WhatsApp link. They would like to get the WhatsApp link, Mr. Charles is going to send it, please. Okay. Let me try to go here and see. I'm looking for him, please. I'm looking for him, but where can I find him? Oh, Mr. Charles wants to be unmuted. I'm looking for him. Again, I cannot see him. Let me see. Okay, a moment. I'm looking for Mr. Charles. Wants to be unmuted. But again, I cannot see him. Mr. Charles, I'm sorry, I'm looking for you, but I don't know whether admin, let me see. Yes, admin Charles Otto. Okay. I've now seen you. Yes, have I muted you?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Can you make me a host? I want to stop.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to stop the live streaming on YouTube. Just help me and you make me a co-host. Thank you, Lana. Thank you so much. Thank you, teacher Busuulwa, for the wonderful lesson. I understood very well. How for you to learn this technology, it will help you even if you come to
The network. The network is not clear, but I've made you a co-host. But the network is not clear. We cannot hear you very well. Yes, Mr. Charles, your network, I think, has issues. Yes, Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles. Well, I think the network has got issues, and yes, Mr. Charles.